Hello everybody, it is Nicole from iiKiui and welcome back to an elemental. Today we are doing the electricity elemental, so let's go ahead and get started. So for this design, I really wanted to make it very different from the original electricity elemental because a lot of people confused it with ice or snow, and I can definitely see why. Because the old design was mainly blue and white and didn't really have a lot of representation for electricity, it can be easily misinterpreted as ice and snow. So for this take, I wanted to focus on the idea of electricity and how it is perceived to us. So for example, outlets, Wi-Fi, cables, batteries, all these things require electricity to work, so I wanted to include that. So as you can see, her hair is made of cables, the bottom of her feet are outlets, and there's just other things in there that would represent electricity in the way that we see it. So I started off with the skin, and I decided on a gray color because it's neutral, just to make the other colors pop, and most cables are either gray or black, at least that's what I've seen. And later on you'll see the other colors, which are red, yellow, and white. And I chose these colors because I feel like these are the most iconic cable colors when you're thinking of cables to plug into your TV or into something. And I also chose the color green because it's a iconic color for something that is being fully charged, compared to red, which would be something is dying. So like I said, I started with the skin and I knew I wanted it to be light gray just to keep it neutral. And to make enough contrast, I decided to make her dress very dark. And at first, when I used the Koi Sakura watercolors, it didn't turn out as dark as I wanted. So later I went back in with the Color It watercolor brush pens and I used black. So I basically made it a pure black. For her hands, I decided to not make them solid, so I tried to give the impression of a hologram because I feel like that represents technology, and to use technology we have to use electricity. Not only that, her hand is also connected to Wi-Fi, which I feel like is an important part to include in this drawing. I mean, without the internet, you wouldn't be seeing this video, so thank you, internet. Going back to her dress, I decided to make the lightning bolt on her dress yellow. Originally in the color scheme that I planned out, it was green, but I looked at it again and it looked like there was too much green because you see when I colored the hands, I also color her eye, which is green, and it's also a light bulb, which maybe it should have been yellow, but it's green. And her lips are green, the necklace around her neck is also green. So there's a lot of green, and I felt like it was too unbalanced in the sense that there was too much green and gray. I needed more of a contrast or a pop of color. And considering that I also had red and yellow as my other color choices, I decided to go for yellow, which also kind of represented lightning and electricity and all that. The dress totally reminds me of something from Monster High, which Frankenstein wore in the movie Freaky Fusion. If you guys watched it or remember it, it definitely reminds me of that. So that's how the dress went, but for most of the color scheme, it stayed pretty true to what I originally planned out. And in the behind the scenes, I'll show another version of the color scheme that I did, which was all blue, because I was trying to figure out if I want to keep that blue and white color scheme, but I felt like this version captured it a little bit better than the blue and was able to represent electricity better than the blue version. So there's a bunch of little details inside of her design. I just added some batteries and the colors red, green, orange, and yellow to represent like battery life. Those are usually the colors that we see when something is either charging or dying, and they're kind of the symbolic representation of how much power is left in something. So for the next day, I decided to go in with the Color It pens just to add more darkness to the dark parts and more vibrancy to the light parts. Usually when I'm doing watercolors, I go with the Sakura koi watercolors first, but they never seem to be vibrant enough, maybe because I'm too scared to make them vibrant enough or I'm too scared to mess up. So having the color inside the pen really helps and lets me just start off with the dark color. Then I went with the Arteza watercolor pencils, mainly for the gray because I could never seem to get her hair dark enough to the point where it was contrasted enough, but I didn't want it to be too dark where it would blend in with the dress. So I just used the watercolor pencils to add some shading, just with kind of colored pencils without blending it, because I feel like these pencils are also pretty good for just adding some shading without adding water to them. So that's what I like to use them for. And for the gold, I forgot to film it, but I decided to go for outlining the yellow on her dress in the gold, mainly because I couldn't really find a good place to put the gold without covering all the yellow, but I wanted to keep the yellow because it felt like it was an important color for the cables. So that about wraps up this elemental. I hope you guys enjoyed it and are looking forward to the future ones. Let me know what you think compared to the old one, because I feel like it is definitely very different from the original electricity elemental that I did back who knows how long. And once I finish remaking all the old elementals, I'll do a comparison from the old ones to the new ones so you guys can see side by side. But I personally really like how this one turned out. When I was sketching it, I really didn't think of the color scheme, but now that it is applied, I really like it, and I think that it represents electricity the way I wanted to represent it. So that is all for this video. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Keep drawing, keep painting, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!